The Chicago Bulls and the Golden State Warriors have both had trouble re-signing their restricted free agents Josh Giddey and Jonathan Kuminga. And according to Brett Siegel, the Golden State Warriors are holding out hope that a sign and trade could happen to send Kuminga to the Bulls, targeting Ayo Dosunmu. We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus another update in regards to Coby White from Brett Siegel as well. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all. And this comes from Brett Siegel. He tweeted both these out. He said this. He was asked in regard to what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga, and Brett Siegel said this. Kuminga's camp want a big deal in the $30 million range and don't want to be back with the Warriors. Golden State wants a small deal in $20 million range where they can flip him because there is no market. Dubs are still holding out that a sign and trade with the Bulls can happen. Ayo Dosunmu is a good player. Now, this is not the first time we've heard that the Golden State Warriors have an interest in Ayo Dosunmu. Right now, that was kind of further on. Since then, it's flipped to deals involving Nikola Vucevic and at one point Coby White because the contracts match. And this is a deal that could theoretically go down if depending on the level of contract that Ayo Dosunmu that Jonathan Kuminga does sign. Of course, an Ayo Dosunmu at $7 million. Keep in mind, sign and trade for restricted free agents. Only half the base year compensation counts towards matching the salary, meaning that if Jonathan Kuminga signs for a $25 million deal, for example, only $12.5 million count towards the matching in the salary there. Now, because the Bulls do also have a trade exception of almost $20 million, of $17 million or so, this is a deal that theoretically could go down if the Chicago Bulls wanted to go down. Now, that would be crazy to me. To lose one of your only defenders that you have on the team. When you look at it, the Bulls have Isaac Okoro, Ayo Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, even though he's had a slide defensively. Now Noah Essengay as well, right? You can count him in that. But we don't have a whole lot of defenders on this team. And so doubling down on that for more offense. Now, one could say that, hey, Jonathan Kuminga has more offensive upside more defensive upside than maybe you're giving him credit for. Okay, maybe I am not giving him enough credit for that. But then you create even more of a logjam at the forward position with Modest. You got Noah Essengay that's coming up that, is not going to play a lot of minutes right away, but you would like to think eventually there has to be a path or a plan for him to get into that lineup and play a handful of minutes. So it would be interesting. It feels like a lot of this when you still hear things in regards to Jonathan Kuminga coming to the Chicago Bulls, that it's still some remnants of kind of earlier trade talks, trade rumors. That's what it feels like to me. Again, I could be completely wrong on that. For all I know, that Brett Siegel has the latest up-to-date information that the Warriors are still holding out for that. Now, as far as for the Warriors, Ayo makes a whole lot of sense for that team. When you look at the fact that they need more defensive players to kind of help what they have going on there, Ayo Dosunmu could also be a guard that they could re-sign at the end of this season and have, there for a while as well. So that kind of makes some sense there if they have an interest in Ayo. But, from what we've heard, yeah, there's been a lot of teams interested in Ayo Dosunmu, but we don't know if the Bulls have necessarily that high of a desire to trade Ayo. Now, I talk to you guys all the time. I see comments, all the time between here and Locked On Bulls as far as just different perspectives on what the Bulls should do with Ayo. You have some Bulls fans that say, yeah, trade Ayo now. He's not a star. You have people say, well, trade Ayo now because he has great value. And then, of course, you have your contingents of Bulls fans that say, why would we trade Ayo Dosunmu considering what the upside that's still there for him and how good he is as a player? And, of course, you also get the comments of, but he's from Chicago, right? And ultimately, I'll say this, and I've said this multiple times, regardless of my desire, and I would love the Chicago Bulls to keep Ayo Dosunmu. I would love for the Chicago Bulls to keep Coby White. More on that here in a second. But as much as I would love that, if AK saw this as Jonathan Kuminga is the guy that he wants with Coby, with Josh Giddey, and he feels like that's part of what can make the Bulls a consistent playoff team, I can't be mad at him being aggressive about going out and doing it, but it better work. And that's just where I stand at with a lot of these rumored moves or whatever, is that if it works, great. I'm going to shut the hell up about it. Now I'm going to have some concerns. I'm going to have some, some things that I talk about if a trade were to go down, that, why I think it could work or couldn't work or stuff like that. But that's with anything. The Bulls and AK, it seems like they want to do something, but also they also don't want to kind of ruin some of the flexibility that's upcoming too. But we shall see. Kuminga and the Bulls have been linked together literally basically all offseason, really since before the season ended. And because of that, you like to think that there is some smoke to that fire. Now, how far is that going to go? That's a story for another day. We do not know. But I will say this. In the offseason where we have heard, like last week, that the Bulls' initial plan may have been to get Josh Giddey and Jonathan Kuminga. And if you're talking about locking in two restricted free agents that both want near $30 million, that's $60 million, right? And then you still got to make a decision on Kobe at the end of the year. So, I mean, maybe that. And on the flip side of that, maybe the Bulls look at it and saying, hey, we want to be players in the offseason of 2026, and we just look at Jonathan Kuminga as basically one of those acquisitions, which, okay, I mean, if that's what you want to do. So let me know what you guys think on this down below. As you hear this, Brett Siegel, again, came out and said that that the Dubs still holding out that a sign and trade with the Chicago Bulls can happen, and that Ayo Dosunmu is a good player, basically alluding to there is some interest from the Golden State Warriors in regards to Ayo Dosunmu coming to the team. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, he followed that up with another tweet. He quote tweeted his own tweet where he said this: I've heard the Bulls would like to keep Kobe White. You never know in this league, but I heard that from multiple people at Summer League. And this follows up with what AK said at Summer League with, we want to see Josh Giddey and Kobe White here for a long time. So this shouldn't be no surprise. But I do think there still are some people that hold out this. The Bulls are going to move off from Kobe. They're going to get this large, trade package back for Kobe White. And I've always kind of said, I don't know if that's necessarily true. But it's good to hear that, that they do have plans to keep Kobe White along. Like, now, I wonder how much of that is there a little leeway in that? Because if Kobe White and Josh Giddey, for example, look terrible together and you re-sign Josh Giddey, are you still locked into that backcourt? Like, and again, I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm just saying, it just raises some questions in regards to that and what it could happen. But here's the thing. And I'm gonna this is just me talking as a Bulls fan for a second, is that the Bulls of the last couple of off seasons, as a matter of fact, have been in a lot of trade rumors with not a lot of trades being done. Now, we got some in the Josh Giddey situation. We signed and traded DeMar DeRozan. We traded Zach LaVine in that time period as well. So it's not like trades haven't got done, but a lot of these trade rumors it starts feeling like we know that the Bulls have cap space. We know that the Bulls have a lot of expiring contracts. We know that the Bulls are, a team that is probably never going to tank. And that's another thing that I still see some Bulls fans that haven't come to that realization yet. But yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. It just does not feel like the Bulls are going to be doing a lot more move before the start of the season. Now, I do think that there is a world in which the Bulls can be a little bit more active between the start of the season and the trade deadline. I think the Bulls, depending on how they evaluate, I've said it before, evaluation. You have so many expiring contracts. You want to see how much with this roster and the improvements that you've made, how much can they really live up to that end of season stretch that they had there. That's all fine. That's all reasonable. But in that evaluation of doing that when you get to the trade deadline, that's where the Bulls need to really be looking at things and ask themselves, all right, are we in a point where we want to acquire assets? Are we at a point that we want to combine these expiring contracts to go after a player because they may not sign with us in free agency? So maybe we want to go out and get somebody who's available, who's become disgruntled, who's once out on their teams. And that's what the Bulls have to kind of trying to figure out and maneuver here going forward. And I really don't know what's going to come of that. The easiest thing to bet on with AK in this front office is that the Bulls don't do anything. That's the easiest thing to bet on. And I think that more likely than not, this is going to be a season where the Bulls stand pat. Now, watch me say this, and within an hour, I'm recording a video on the Bulls actually making a trade, because that's just how things go around here. But I don't think that a lot of these kind of trade rumors and things, it feels like, at least for me, in my opinion, it feels like the Bulls are going to re-sign Josh Giddey and we're just going to go forward into the season with what we've had. Now, there also is an article over from Sports Illustrated that talked about the Minnesota Timberwolves potentially being interested in a Kobe White trade, going so far as that they may be willing to put Rob Dillingham on the board to trade for Kobe White. Now, that would be something that I would not lie, I may be a little bit enticed in. Rob Dillingham has a huge upside, but again, it seems like the Bulls are going to be committed to keeping Kobe White, and that's perfectly fine if they do that. And for those that want to know that, the projected trade or the presented trade was Dante DiVincenzo and Rob Dillingham for Kobe White. Now, we know the Bulls can't take multiple players back in a trade. It'll have to be 1 for 1 or 2 for 2, so they'd either have to include somebody or cut somebody to make that happen. But a potential Kobe White to the Minnesota Timberwolves, it just doesn't feel legitimate. It feels like that is a writer trying to write up something for their team specifically. But hey, you just never know. I wanted to throw that out there while we're talking about rumors, because if something were to happen and I knew about it and then people will find out, well, Hayes, you heard about that? You ain't tell us? I don't want that smoke. I'm not trying to get no smoke. No, y'all know I welcome all smokes. I got hands in the platform. You can get both. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.